Welcome, everybody, to the Case for Construction Culture podcast, balancing safety and profitability. And we're here with a guest I'm super excited about, Brian Lassiter. Brian is the president at Performance Excellence Network here in Minnesota. He's been there for 23 years, Brian, I think,
I
and
think that's
some
right.
months,
Yes.
almost
Time
almost
flies.
24. And Brian has been improving organizational performance. He's got expertise in enterprise quality, organizational assessment, process improvement, effective leadership. So he's a great example. He's not mostly deep in the construction culture, but he's such a clear thinker. He loves the Baldrige model, and he's been a colleague and a friend for a while. So Brian, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here. This will be fun.
Yeah, it will. And we're mostly with you talking about culture, talking about what you're excited about in your organization, talking about what you're doing, challenges you see as you work with, literally hundreds of different leaders and have been for a long time. So let's just dive right in, Brian. How would you define culture? What are some of the words you use or that you've learned through Baldrige and other things? How do you, and I know it's a giant question, it's almost unfair, but say some things about how you envision culture in terms of leadership development and growing great leaders in organizations.
Yeah, appreciate that question. First of all, I recognize we're both wearing sweaters or sweatshirts or whatever you are. So if somebody's watching this in July, it is in the middle of January when we're recording
It
this.
is in Minnesota, and it was about
Yeah.
20 below yesterday. Yes.
Right. Well, we could be wearing these in July. Who knows? But I appreciate the question. Culture is one of those tough things to measure and define until you see it. And you mentioned I work with Baldrige. Really, really quick sidebar. For those of you that don't know, the Baldrige framework is a management and improvement system that helps organizations and businesses of all sizes and types get better. And they actually have a definition of culture. I'm going to read it. It's just one sentence, and then I'm
Love
going
it.
to give it
Read
my
it.
paraphrase, if that's okay.
Read it. Yeah.
The sentence is the shared beliefs, norms, and values that characterize your workforce and that are demonstrated within the organization. Actually, two sentences. In high performing organizations, senior leaders create and reinforce the culture of an organization's culture based on the organization mission, vision, and values. So it's how the organization operates. And my loose paraphrase is it's how we do things around here.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite definition is that's the way it is around here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And it's norms and expectations, it's behaviors, it's how leaders and workforce hold everybody accountable to standards and expectations of behavior.
Yes, and you said the key word, Brian. It's a word both of us pay attention to, leaders, because
Yeah,
leaders shape the culture. Let's face it. I mean,
absolutely.
some say, "Oh, I don't know how these people got the way they got, Tom. Boy, we need help around here. These guys are not accountable." They say this in the construction world regularly, and I think you're the leader, you're the founder, right?
Yeah.
Not to blame them or shame them, but isn't the leader so key in shaping that culture, Brian?
They are, and my sense, and this will resonate with you, and hopefully many of you that are listening to this, leaders need to be thoughtful on what type of culture they create. Your organization has a culture, like it or not, and it rather be intentional and deliberate in creating one that you want to reinforce and grow, rather than kind of stumble into one. And so I think leaders, they have certain tools at their disposal. First of all, think about what culture you want, and then begin to shape your foundational statements. Your mission statement, your vision statement, a
Mhm.
set of core values, if you will, to embody that culture and reflect what it is. And then and you may want to go deeper into this, or you may not, but then begin to take those cultural concepts and build them into how the organization operates. So things like rewards and recognition and performance management systems and communication and those types of things can all reflect the culture that you aspire to or that you want to preserve.
Hmm. Absolutely. We could go into all that, but I want to get through the
Yeah.
podcast and not take too long. So, what are you most excited about, Brian, as we go in here into early in 2025? What in terms of what you're developing, what you're growing, and the organizations you work with? What excites you? Where do you see like your opportunities this year?
Yeah, there's a lot. First of all, if I may, just 20 seconds on what PEN is, Performance Excellence
Mhm.
Network, that gives a little bit
Sure.
of context. Yeah, we're a 30, gosh, I have to do the math, 38-year-old nonprofit now, coming up on 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
uh, developed in the state by the governor and the legislature under the original name Minnesota Council for Quality,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
current name Performance Excellence Network. We're a nonprofit that helps businesses and organizations of all sizes and type get better, improve their performance and their outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we do assessments to help leaders identify what to improve. And we host, and you've been a partner in many of them, all different types of forums to bring leaders and professionals
Mm-hmm.
together to share and learn, webinars, workshops, conferences, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the all boats rise mentality. You share a good idea and an insight or a tool, and everybody gets better because of it. So in that regard, some of the things I'm excited about this year, and I mentioned this to you in another conversation, is artificial intelligence. I mean, the use of technology with Penn and with our members to, make better decisions and provide more value to our customers. It's been around us a long time. We
Mm-hmm.
all carry around Siri and whatever in our hands
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's becoming real now, and it's really enabling work. So in our work, I think there's some real application we need to explore and figure out what it means to us.
Interesting. I did not expect you to say that. Artificial intelligence. I am not an early adopter with some technology, Brian, but I'm slowly getting.
Yeah,
I do chat GPT, and I do think it's key. It's really key. I mean, it's sort of taken over the world, whether we like it or not.
yeah,
How do we use it for leadership improvement and leadership performance and assessments even? I mean,
absolutely.
it's a
Yeah.
useful tool if we use it right, I think.
Yeah, there's a downside to it. There's certainly a risk. I mean, there's privacy issues and there's plagiarism, and if it falls into the wrong hands. I mean, there's all sorts of risk that we need to manage.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of power too. In leveraging better decision make. I was talking to a
Yes.
leader a week or two ago who was having a problem with an employee, and they actually used ChatGPT to begin to think through how others have solved this problem, and what solutions could they consider. Now that they didn't take it as gospel and run with it. I mean, you have to use your own judgment, but what a thought starter to just help leaders start to think through some of the challenges they're facing and what they might do about it.
Yes, it's really interesting. Also, you mentioned in an earlier conversation you have a bunch of volunteers. Would you say a few sentences about how you use volunteers? It's not AI, but how are
Right.
you using volunteers in growing your mission?
Yeah, thanks. We're a very small nonprofit, two paid employees and a handful of 1099s that come and go.
Hmm.
But we use about 100 volunteers in lots of different ways. Some of them are participating on our evaluation teams that help identify and prioritize strengths and improvement opportunities against that Baldrige framework. So they're giving 100+ hours of service every year as
Hmm.
volunteers and lending their own professional expertise, their own experience to help other organizations improve their performance. And then we have other volunteers that sit on permanent committees and task forces and do training for us and things like that. So it's a
Hmm.
really unique business model. I come from business too,
Hmm.
financial services, banking, and insurance, and so forth.
Hmm.
But to use volunteers to execute our mission is really unique and really powerful because they all come to us for different reasons, and they all
Hmm.
get something out of the experience too. They're learning more about what drives performance within organizations, how to improve their own leadership skills, and so forth. So it's a win-win proposition.
I have two people working for me. Maybe I need 100 volunteers, Brian. You're going to have to tell me how you achieve that. So what are some of the challenges you have as you are empowering leaders, training leaders, bringing in speakers
uh,
like me and having conferences? What are some of the challenges you see right now in this year as you're
yeah.
looking ahead?
I will say, and this has been growing probably before COVID, certainly through COVID, but accelerating after COVID.
Yeah,
It's stress. It's
yes.
stress and
Yeah,
capacity of
yeah,
everyone in every type of business. There's just not enough of us to do the work.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't know. You're probably seeing it with your clients too, and the organizations you're working for. People are
yes,
just putting out, and so it's stress and it's time.
yeah,
I think some of the fundamental tools of quality and performance improvement can help a little bit.
yeah,
Extracting waste out of your system and trying to improve productivity and things like that. But
yeah.
so and I mentioned that some of it's doing the work in ways that are more efficient, so that you can do
Hmm.
more of it or do less of the non-value added stuff. But some of it's just taking care of yourself and your team,
Yes.
intentionally timeouts
Yes.
and
What
and so
what do
forth.
you think the cause is, Brian? Like me, you've been in business 30
Uh,
plus years. This it wasn't like this in 1985,
no,
1995. The world was different even 10, 15 years ago. I mean, stress has been around, but what do you see as the sources of stress currently that are different maybe than
Yeah.
they were. Not that I mean, we all had stress, but there's something new and different. What are some of the
Yeah.
sources from your point of view on this
Boy,
level of stress that we see everywhere?
you probably should be talking to someone else on a different podcast about that one because there's probably a lot of experts researching it. I don't think there's a simple answer, Tom. I think it's multifaceted. Part of it is just we don't have enough human beings to do the work anymore. And I
Hmm.
mentioned capacity, and we all know the baby boomers are retiring, whatever it is,
Hmm.
10,000 a day. So
Yeah.
we're trying to accomplish more with fewer people, and that is
Uh,
really
uh-huh.
straining the systems we have in place. And then COVID probably exaggerated that a little bit, but I think that's part of it is just pure capacity. And
Uh-huh.
and then you throw in, the world is more challenging today. Technology continues to accelerate. Customers' expectations are growing. So all these are multivariate, and you're trying to do a lot more with a lot less, and that is causing people to burn out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's really true. Burnout and mental health,
Yeah,
it's a real issue. Suicide in the construction industry.
it's real.
Horrible. I don't know if you track it in your industries, but I do track it and it's horrible
It
and
is.
very
It's
high
serious.
in construction, probably second highest of any industry, according to the experts.
Yeah,
So you and I have to pay attention to that, Brian,
we
and I'm
do.
glad you're at least thinking about it. And God knows there's plenty of experts out there
There
and
are.
whatnot. But I'm also curious about how you see yourself. Culture is really formed by decisions, behaviors,
Hmm.
values of its founders and leaders, and you're working largely with those leaders at your events. In what ways can leaders like you influence outcomes such as worker engagement, profitability, quality work, safety? Those are the themes. And I know, you're not
Hmm.
mainly in construction, but some of your members are contractors. And I know all of your companies care about safety, if not physical safety, psychological safety. What are some of
Sure.
the ways that you or the people you bring in can influence some of these outcomes? What do you see as
Yeah.
some of the most effective ways we can influence others and influence culture along
Yeah.
some of those outcomes? And I know you guys measure outcomes. You're serious about measuring outcomes.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I'm going to give you an extremely simple answer. I hope it's a good one. We'll see. You let me know. I believe, and this will resonate with you. I think that everything we do within a business or an organization is a process. Everything. Some of them are large and sophisticated, like setting strategy and deploying it, and some of
Mhm.
them are quite simple. Building a wall is
Mhm.
a simple process that's been tried and true for hundreds of years. Building a culture and a culture of safety and a culture of engagement and a culture of inclusiveness and all that is also a process. And I think the single biggest thing leaders can do is sit down and have a conversation with your team
Mhm.
and listen to them, truly listen to them and understand what drives their engagement, what makes them tick, so to speak, and respond to that. You hear them out and change organizational components that address their needs. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's easier said than done, but that really, I mean, the workers know what causes an unsafe work environment. They know what drives their own satisfaction or their team's engagement levels. So ask them and then do something about it.
I love it. Sit down and have the conversation. I was just on the phone today with a contractor here in the Midwest, and they said they have real problems with their people not being accountable.
Yeah.
And they talked about they put a big lump of money aside, and they said, we will just spread this out as bonuses at the end of the year if you don't have any major problems. And then they said, well, then there was a $30,000 error here and a $10,000 error there and a $5,000 error there. And at the end of the year, they were in debt actually from the pot of money. And I asked them if they were able to sit down and talk with people, and they say, we're too busy. We got too much going on. We don't have the time to sit down. We're busy. We're contractors. We're always working. And I asked some questions and challenged them a little bit, and they weren't real open to the. And I said, "Well, it seems like you're successful. You're doing fine enough, but I think you nailed it, Brian. Just sitting down and listening
Yeah.
and spending time and pulling away from the business. And it's
That's right.
hard. It's brutal. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if your members struggle the way my contractor members. They struggle. I mean, they're
They
doing the
do.
best they can, right?
They do.
And in this case, it's a profitable company. They're doing well enough, but are they at risk for safety things? Are
Yeah.
they at risk to have another big error that cost them a lot of money
Yeah.
because they didn't plan better, because they didn't hold people accountable better, because their leaders
Yes.
don't have the training that you offer, because they
Yes.
never ever did an assessment on their culture.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think when I say
You
all
know,
that.
I that resonates with me, and I'll offer you a concept and a metaphor that hopefully works with the folks that are listening here. The duality of work, and it's not my phrase, and I can't cite whoever said that, but it really is that natural tension between working in the business and working on the
On the
business.
business.
Yeah, we are working in the business every day. I mean, you're lifting hammers, you're pouring concrete, you're doing stuff, and
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of it. And every once in a while, the leaders and the team need to take a pause and get out of the business and see how it's going. What could we do to improve? Could we satisfy customers a little better? How could we do this step better or eliminate some steps or waste? So the metaphor is like riding a bike. I mean, you're pedaling to wherever you're going for many miles. Every once in a while, you got to get off that darn bike and make sure the chain is oiled and the brakes are working and the tires are inflated, right? And you got to work on the bike. Otherwise, that thing's going to collapse on you. So it is that duality of working in the business and on the business.
Yeah, the maintenance is so important. I don't know if you have a recommended time frame, Brian, for your people, but how often should that leadership team sit down and evaluate their
Yeah.
effectiveness?
Well, I don't know if there is a recommended time. It probably depends on the business and the urgency and what's
Sure.
going on in their environment and so forth. But I think it's with regular frequency, whatever that means to your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Could be once a year, it could be once a quarter, it could be once a week or a month. Just
Yeah.
it could be daily. There are some businesses that have daily stand-ups. It's a really
Yeah.
simple concept. It actually comes out of
Yeah.
retail.
Yeah.
You think about shift changes at a restaurant and a hospital and things like that, and they get
Yeah.
everybody together, and it's 5 or 10 minutes, and hey,
Yeah.
what's going on? What do I need to know? What's wrong with customer A, B, or C, and those are really simple working on the business techniques that
Yes.
are highly effective and don't take much time at all.
Yes. Yes. And even myself, Brian, I know this stuff and I don't work on the business
Yeah,
enough. It's so seductive and so
yeah,
easy to just grind out the work and not
yeah,
pause to have the retreat to take the time to
yeah.
it's a challenge even for me and I'm sure for you. As we're wrapping up here, I have at least one last question, unless you have a thought for me, and that's a story of a change effort you've either seen or you've been part of helping lead that either went well or didn't go well. And I always love that didn't go
Yeah.
well. If you have a really bad one and
Well,
ugly
I'll tell
one.
you,
Those are always my favorite. If you can tell them without
yeah,
jeopardizing your
yeah,
professional
yeah, yeah. No,
future.
no
Um,
attribution on this one. I I will tell you a brief story, and I shared this with you a while back, and it was actually as I was walking into my role,
yeah,
whatever it was, 23, 24 years ago, and
yeah,
uh, the output of our process, our evaluation process against this Baldrige Standard of Excellence, is a
hmm
feedback report, and there's an award, a trophy that comes with it, and so forth. And I deliver the report to the CEO of this small to mid-sized business, and it was not what he expected at all. I mean, they
hmm
got the lowest size trophy, and they had a lot of opportunities for improvement and gaps and so forth. And boy, he let me have it. And he said, your process is broken and it's not credible, and you just got it all wrong, and you don't understand my business. And well, it turns out that I can't remember, his brother or some relative who was involved with our work before led him to believe that they were much better than they really were. And so I believe our report and our findings were completely accurate,
yes,
but he wasn't having it. And so I
yeah,
had to take my lumps. And when your name is the Performance Excellence Network, and excellence is right in the middle of the word, the phrase, you're all about excellence. You better listen to your customers. So I must have met with this guy 3 or 4 times, one-on-one, CEO to me, and heard him out. And there were some nuggets in there. There were some things that we absolutely needed to respond to and pay attention to and improve in our own work, our own
yeah,
process,
yes,
and get off the bike and kind of improve our own thing.
yes.
But a lot of it was just hearing them out, and they became a long-term customer and very engaged. And he really appreciated being heard. And I guess that's the moral of the story: is that part of these failures are real, and you should learn from them and fix your business and your work. And part of them is just listening to customers, listening to
Yeah.
workers, and so forth. And it has a lot of mileage these days.
Listening and being willing to admit you may have made a mistake or didn't
Yeah,
get it complete. That's real humility, Brian.
yeah,
It's so important in business. It's so important nowadays with social media. Everyone sees what everybody's doing and reports on what we can't fake it as well as we used to.
that's
People
right.
see who we are. Like if you follow college football at all, the Notre Dame, the place where I went to school, got
Sorry
to the
about that.
national
Yeah.
championship. Thank you. Ohio State beat us. But before that, in the Orange Bowl, we beat Penn State, but the quarterback had a bad game. And the
Mhm.
reporter's like, Riley Leonard, you always find a way to win. What did you do today to win? And he goes, well, not that much. I actually messed up today. These guys got the win. And he did. He threw
Yeah.
an interception. He did not have a good game. He admitted his mistake. What beautiful humility. What a sign of leadership.
Mhm.
I don't know where that young man will end up, but my hunch is he's going to end up in high leadership in some business somewhere where that quality sticks and makes a difference to the organization. Any final thoughts you have, Brian, here?
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I really appreciate the conversation. I'll put one word postscript on the story you just told. It's about character, and I'll tell you, as much technology and AI we throw at stuff, and as complicated and sophisticated as business is getting these days, it comes down to character and relationships, right?
it does.
You have to
It
be
does.
humble, you have to be real, and you have to listen to people and form relationships. It's as basic as that, and that hasn't changed in decades or
Yeah.
generations.
It's basic. It's not rocket science, but these are good reminders. And coming from a guy of your caliber and your character, it means a lot to me. So thanks, Brian, for being on the program.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
you. We will be in touch down the road.
Thanks so much, Tom.